Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Noni Davis. I'm here from St. C Academy, representing my people here, St. C Academy. I'm sorry about that. Um, I am a legacy owner of this private school. Inherited this school from my parents, William Edward Davis, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis. And my mother, who is still here with us, 83 years old and popping, got it going on, is still here. Um, what I wanted to do really quickly is kind of do a quick review of what I did last week with Ethiopian spiritual system of Christianity, Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And one of the things I forgot to mention, I was uh, last week was Ethiopian. Wait a minute. Um, well, just a quick review. We that the oldest Bible is in Ethiopia. The oldest churches. Let me see that. Because a lot of times we don't know what these older. Wait. Let's see. The oldest churches, Lalibala, are in Ethiopia. Uh, we have Makta, who's from the Ethiopian princess who married Solomon and had her son Menelik. We've got Moses, who was in Egypt, who was part of Thutmose. We have, let's see, what else do I have here? Taharka, who is an Ethiopian Cushite king who rescued Israel from the Assyrians. And this, now that is real. That really did happen. We have the Queen Candaces, who were a line of Ethiopian queens that ruled for 500 years. Um, Amenorhanes was one of them, and she sent the Ethiopian eunuch to who must have been an Ethiopian Jew from Ethiopia to who encountered Philip in Acts, the book of Acts, and who accepted Jesus and got his baptism. We have the celebration of the Ark of the Covenant, which Menelik, the son of Solomon and Makta, claim he brought from Ethiopia and it is not in Israel. And Ethiopia is the only place that celebrates it. Um, uh, and there was a historical thing. I think it was the Babylonians took it at one point in a battle, and then they had, I can't remember, it may have been, I think it was Babylonians, and they had returned the ark, but now it disappeared with Ethiopians, and they didn't have to send it back. Huh. And then you have all of this African connections to this biblical source, and yet my issue with African Americans is that we are still, I know we may not know everything, but why are we still practicing? If you're practicing the spiritual system, why are you practicing it through the lens of Western culture versus an African culture? And I know a lot of it is anti-blackness. Black people were besieged on the continent for not practicing Christianity. And we were told that Europeans knew who God was and that we didn't. But in fact, Africans are the oldest people on the planet. It has consistently been proven that the original people came from Kenya, came from in Ethiopia. Dinknesh is one of the oldest fossils, but of Australopithecus, whatever, I can't remember the name of the fossil, who um, it was more human than monkey or whatever, but scientifically. And she was found in Ethiopia. And we have, I did a unit on a scientific, what is it? Simple machines. And we know that Africans were the first to create these, wheels and axles, spears, what do they call them? The fulcrum, the wedge, the screw, all of these early machines. We were the ones that developed these, and the evidence is in the pyramids. The evidence is in the raising of these obelisks. And so our scientific knowledge was there. And so I decided to say, well, let's take a look, at African spirituality and what are the foundational roots of it, so we can kind of disparage these ideas of or get rid of these demeaning notions that we were worshiping, y'all are worshiping Satan and all of this nonsense, where that was not true. It wasn't true at all. And then there are some correlations and similarities between African spiritual systems, traditional systems, and European ones. And so, but the whole one of the things in the article that it kept saying is that there were pre-Christian notions, but we have just done this complete exercise about Ethiopia and how, according to the Bible, Ethiopia has always been, in Egypt, East Africa has always been a part of that narrative. So we were in that these at the foundation of these Hebrew and Christian spiritual systems. We were there at the beginning. So we don't have to say Africa, pre-Christian Africa, because we were there at the beginning of, and our churches are the oldest. African churches are the oldest ones, and the African Bible is the oldest one in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is in Africa. So, but what are the foundational principles of African spiritual systems? And so, I do know that Ifa is 10,000 years old. Ifa is a religion practiced by the Yoruba people in Nigeria. You also had religious practices that developed along the Niger River, in Dartichit. I think I talked about that before, and that was Wagadu, ancient Ghana. So that would have been Mali, the Mali Empire, the Mauritania, Mali, and Senegal, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau area. That is the ancient area of that, in that space, and they also had their own spiritual systems. But I found this young lady, and her name is I'm assuming the name is Paulinus, and so it could be a man. So let me correct that mistake. So Paulinus Ikechukwu Odozor wrote this article in 2019, and the name of it is The Essence of African Traditional Religions. And so this is not a declaration of what people should do, but it is a historical analysis of what these researchers have studied about what the core values of African spiritual systems. Okay, so she interviewed this gentleman named Mbiti. He's a Kenyan scholar. And one of the things he said was that descendants of the first people created a spiritual perspective or concept of the creator or God force. So it was Africans, people who created the whole idea that there was a God, period. Divinity is an African development. Our belief developed in response to our experiences, observations in nature. So and we believe that there was a force that created the universe. So our beliefs developed in response to our experiences. These reflections of observing nature, the ocean, lakes, rivers, forests, mountains, deserts, animal life, plant life, human life, or at that whatever beings we were at that point, prior to what we consider humans, but Homo sapiens. And then you had they were observing those seasons, observing the sky, and day and night, and trying to understand what all of these processes were and came to the conclusion there is a God. And so, um, so our ancestors believed that God created all things and provided sustenance. So he created life and provided a way for that life to be sustained. Early ancestors believed that there were realms of existence. So they believed that there was a heavenly space where God existed. They believed that there were spiritual entities that could be seen and that were unseen. They believed that there were, and the human would be that which is seen. And then they believed that there were, uh, well, the spiritual include the sky and the heavens, and then the earthly realm was the humans and the plants and the animals, then the seen and the unseen. But then he explained, Mr. Mbiti explained that they also, in some cultures, they also believed in an underworld, and I guess for Christians that would be a area of hell or whatever. Um, and so the idea of God is generally associated with the heavenly realm, like I just said, and they consider that to be the masculine energy. And then the earth itself has a feminine energy. And I know most of you have heard of the term Mother Earth, and that is not just relegated to Africans. That is a universal concept among indigenous people, that the earth is the mother. Africans believe that there was a beginning to the universe, which has been confirmed by contemporary science, and it is continuously expanding. So we know that it began, and believe, people say the Big Bang theory or whatever, but we know that it's continued. It's not um, uh, contained. It's continuously growing and expanding. And so we've learned a lot about the universe now through that James Webb telescope that's out there. The pictures from the James Webb telescope are just incredible. But and I've shown my kids, and so I suggest that people go check that out. There is order. Africans believe that there is an order to the universe, to the laws of nature that were established by God when He created the universe. And this order prevents the universe from falling into chaos, ensuring that life and the universe never end. And God has assigned intermediaries. And so for Christians, that would be angels, it could also be demons, but your African people believe that the intermediaries could also be uh, good spirits and bad spirits, depending on your practice. Like in Ifa, it could be your Orishas, and then, but there's the same kind of idea about it. So, and then you have pastors in the Christian space, and in the indigenous spaces of African tradition, you would have, spiritual people who had spiritual powers or whatever. So it could be a priest or a priestess. Um, there is moral and religious order. So you have the order of the universe. God created order, and one of the things I talk to my kids about: how do you know that God has created order? Well, for one thing, you've got the planets, and each planet is orbiting the sun on its own path. So that's an example of order. Um, and so you have 9 planets, and even though they may sometimes be in a perfect alignment every certain, they said every what 100,000 years or something like that. I can't remember, but I think we're getting ready to have one on the 25th. Not sure. I think it is the 25th or something like that. This week they're going to have like 6 of the planets in alignment with each other. Um, that's the sun. That's order. Mercury does not go off of its path, its orbit, and Earth does not, and they don't collide. You also see the order in the way the plants are designed, the way the human body is designed. You got bilateral symmetry, you got radial symmetry, you have asymmetrical plants and animals and cells and things like that. But there is some sense of order and not chaos. Um, there is moral and religious order that God gave humans to understand the difference between good and evil and to live in harmony with creation and with one another. So when we talk about, the commandments, that's order. When we talk about, Ma'at and the admonitions of Ma'at, when you talk about Buddha, you have these uh, orders, these laws that have been created for Africans. I mean, to help society, people to govern themselves within their communities. And so this was an African creation. Moral order helps humankind to establish among themselves what is good and what is evil, what is right, what is wrong, what is truthful and what is false, what is beautiful and ugly, what are rights and duties. And these are based upon the idea of moral order in the universe. And so I'm just restating what Mr. Mbiti says. And this is according to the interview of Paulinus Ikechukwu Odozor, who wrote this article in 2019, The Essence of African Traditional Religions. Okay, so right there, I have not seen, as I was reading through this, I did not identify anything yet that was contrary to what we believe in Christian and there's no difference, significant difference between Africans and and Western Christian religions. There isn't. Um, People's relationship to each other, people's relationship to God and spiritual beings, people's relationships to nature, to violate the values of the community are considered disrespectful to God and spiritual beings, and an offense to ancestors could lead to punishment of everyone or the one who committed the offense. Now, this is where the past uh, uh, there you have these two pathways. Africans believed in ancestors. They honored their elderly people. And so when they transitioned, they considered them to still be with them, but they would be the ones that were the closer to them than God. Where in African, I mean Western uh, uh, practices believe go straight from the human straight to God, and they don't have believe that their ancestors have anything to do with it. Well, the thing about this ancestor thing, I think there's some confusion on the behalf of Christians. I have read my Bible, so and I am not going to say I'm a biblical theologian, but I take issue with the fact because when I was reading Kings, when you read that Old Testament, there's a lot of begat. This person begat this person begat that person. This person is the son of this person, this person, this person. So that's ancestors to me, and it's also bloodline, but it's and for the kingship of Christ. But there is this thing about ancestors, and it is very critical, and people ignore that. And I don't know whether it's because they don't read their Bible, but I read mine like a history book. And so then you also have Jesus on the Mount in the Sermon on the Mount when he was distressed about facing the crucifixion. He called on Elijah, his ancestor, and Moses, his ancestors, and he was talking to them in their spirit realm. Now, people can say, well, that's not the same. I don't care. It is the same as far as I'm concerned. You don't have to agree with me, but I do not see a huge difference between Jesus communicating with his ancestors and we as humans communicating with our ancestors. And there was too much deliberateness in the text to have to show who was descendant of who was descendant of who. Are you a tribe of Judah? Are you the tribe of Issachar? What Isaac, Issachar, I think, and then who is it? You have all of these tribes, and everybody, the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe. whatever. So you have these 12 tribes, and they all had to know who was preceding them in that Bible, whose house they were in. So to me, that's the same as acknowledging our ancestors and knowing whose houses that we are in. I don't see any difference. I don't think that one is higher than the other, and that's just what I see. Now, offerings of prayer, food, and sacrifices are the way to ensure benevolent relationships with God and the spirits and the ancestors. And so when we are paying tithes and offerings, when we are taking the blood of Jesus, and the wine and the bread, those are religious practices. And I do not see how those religious offerings and cleansings are any different from our ancestral stuff. It it is a holy practice. It is a sacred practice. I'm not going to diminish my ancestral space over a Western interpretation of this space. I'm just not. I think that we can see a holiness in everything, and instead of allowing others to say our stuff was demonic and evil and wicked, and and disparage it, we need to see what was the beauty of it, and honor it and just respect. Because a lot of times when we are doing all of this stuff, we're also it's self harm, in my opinion. Anyway, so let's see, a basic rule or procedure of moral choice, a metaphysical abstract grounding, the possibility of strict moral retribution, and a transmoral suspension of retribution in the face of self-confessed and inescapable human wrongdoing. So even if you committed some kind of act of sin, there was always, just like we believe that there with the Christian version, that you can repent and turn. There was the same kind of thing in the African traditional spiritual systems, that you can sincerely ask for forgiveness and make restitution through some sort of act of penance, or prayer, or uh, some way to make restitution for the sin that you committed against your community. These ideas are similar to beliefs that have been co-opted by Western religions thought of humans can sin against God, but confession and repentance can lead to mercy. Now, some of the differences in traditions in Western Christian traditions include the daily interaction with God. So, like I was saying earlier, African people did not see God in their everyday life, um, the way the Christians, your Western religion does. African traditional beliefs consider God to be distant and disinterested in the daily interactions of mankind. And these daily interactions are relegated to spiritual agents and human practitioners of spiritual arts. Okay, now this was written by this guy, Ronald Green, a non-African scholar of African religion. And he is included in this article, but this is his opinion. He said there is no heaven or hell. Africans don't believe you're going to go and sit somewhere uh, when you do something wrong. Um, they believe punishment only occurs in the earthly realm. So if you do something crazy in the earthly realm, you're going to get punished in the earthly realm. Morality is on earth. The interpersonal relationships between humans and spiritual beings have moral content and are governed by moral considerations. And this is something that I think is very important, because I believe that what we have here on in this current rendition of Christianity, we have a lot of people who are in positions of religious authority who have committed grotesque crimes against uh, other believers, and have simply been able to say, "Excuse, I'm sorry," and received no real punishment. One of the things that I've heard and read is that often a Catholic priest, could commit uh, pedophilia at his church, um, And instead of being reprimanded and punished for that, he would be sent to what we would call, a third world community, and would be able to continue the practice of pedophilia unchecked in in these places in Africa, in India, in South America, wherever they felt like they were sending them to some impoverished area, and be able to continue these violations. Um, Ancestors uphold right conduct by punishing moral violations, demanding respect and attention, and getting angry when not given due respect. The ancestors present the idea of reciprocity. Respect the ancestors, feed the ancestors, and the living are blessed with peace in their daily lives. So you can't just say, I didn't mean to do it in an African spiritual system and then think you're going to get away with it. You have to mean it, and you have to make restitution. Where in our spiritual system, one of the things I have a problem with is that people can just say, well, I'm just going to accept Jesus, and it's clear. And then they don't receive, they're just received back into the fold without really making correcting. And I'm not saying this is every place, but I mean, I myself have witnessed these issues in the church. And so intermediaries like priests and priestesses must have moral integrity and probity, help to shape human destiny. And the spiritual medium is a physical embodiment of the religious retributive order in which Africans know themselves to stand. Therefore, the idea of Africans as mindless, reckless, and without any concept of the creator is grossly false. And we are the originators of religion and spiritual ideology. We developed morality and integrity. We developed the idea of moral and social structures, living in community, and violation of community practices uh, were problematic for you, but there was grace and mercy for those who confessed and repented from their actions that they took. And so all of this is just to say, because I want to also look at, uh, ancient spiritual practices like Ma'at, and share about Ifa a little bit, just to show that we were this whole idea of demeaning the African worldview of spirituality. It's just it's anti-blackness, it's self-hatred, and we do not have to um, demean our own people and elevate others, especially when you can stand right here and see the violence that has been committed in the name of these practices. I'm not forgiving that. I'm not. There's not been an apology. There has not been restitution. There's this fight over reparations. And so there has not been any real effort on the West to correct these paths. And there's some of us who same skin tone who support that narrative that nobody owes us anything. But if you're really practicing this religion, this spiritual practice, then you are obligated to do that if you are really following this path. And because Africans, in their core value, believe in honoring the ancestors, believe yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. If you're uh, uh, standing in deference to your ancestors, we uh, also believe that when these people transition, we were still having to respect them and honor them in that space. And so your ancestors are always there, and you are accountable to them. And so your moral compass is always in doing what is right. Now, this doesn't mean that Africans make them mistakes. I don't think Africa is perfect. Let's be clear. But I think that because they were the first people on the planet, they had to develop these practices. They knew what was wrong, they knew it didn't work, and they created, and they are the foundation for every spiritual system that has emerged. It emerged the sense of God, understanding that there is a creator. That is an African concept, and that's the thing that I want to settle with. And we need to learn more about who we are, and not be so quick to acquiesce to what other people say about who we are. And that's where I am now. I don't care what other people think about who I am. I am finding out what my people did and affirming that. Amen. Ashe.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I know my mom.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can play the drum.
I'm a St. Cia student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Cia student.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So